Of course, the operation system doesn't have any license. What have license is the render engine. And with the render engine, we can have few different features. We can have just the basic license, which will allow us to play all the possible graphics. That's not a problem. But if we are thinking about the playing with the interact or have text effects, some additional design features, or using any other additional shaders, or use the machine for the virtual set with the tracking system, those are all additional license. In that case, the most common license for the HDVG are well, still the software, but those are licenses which are generated based of the ID, so closer to the node-lock license. But of course, then if we have, like in that case, 4 machines in the stations, and just one of it could use the interact, just to have the backup for that machine, we'll need to buy the same license for the second HDVG. At least one, to be as a spare one. If we'll decide to use the USB dongles also for the HDVGs, then of course, first thing we need to connect some USB dongles to each of them. We need to create the file, but in that case, we can install all of the possible options to each of the HDVG, but have license for the interact, for the tracking system, for the text effects, only for the single machine. And if that will go down or something will be broken or will be sent to repaired, we can just easily switch the dongle to the other machine and have the same functionality with no extra cost. Question from John. Okay, John, you're asking if the node-lock license is locked to a software version. It's the same as any other license, yes? So if we are buying 3D Play with the newest version, and let's say like now it's the version 6.5, you will get the license for this version 6.5. So even if the newer version will come out, will be 6.7 or 7.0, your license will not work. It's working in the opposite way. Yes, if you have version for the higher version, for the 7.0, you can launch any version of the 3D Play which is below that, like 6.5.50 and below. So there is no difference between Netlock, USB dongles, or the license server. The license for them always including active features and the versions. I think what is showing that nicely is the picture of the license server. So that looks like license monitor. So if you have the dongle which is starting from the 9 number, serial number, so it's a floating license on the PC, and during the installation we'll choose option that this workstation will become a license server, we are getting the license monitor software with it. And when we'll start it, we'll see what of the licenses are available if they are limited to some time, as we see that this one will expire in 30 days, and we see what versions do they have. Yes. So, for example, that is licensed for the Maestro controller, and we see that it's for version 6.2, but we can also start the version 7.0, but nothing above. The same for designer, yes. We have the license for 1.2. 1.1 will be also working, but if we'll get the installer from somewhere for version 1.3, or the customer care will connect and wanting to help the customer will install the higher version will not start, yes. Is that answering your question? Okay, that's good. With the license, there's also important things. First of all, yeah, we need to make sure that we install the Has driver, as I mentioned before. Yes, other case you can have the window like this one, that basically the system, although it have all the correct files, is not able to recognize the USB dongle connect to the system. The second thing is it could show the window. I don't have it on the slide. License cannot be found. There's also two possible ways. First of all, well, you don't have that file. You just connect the USB dongle, and until you will get that file to that PC, we cannot do nothing. The second thing is, I don't know if somebody by mistake or by purpose mess up something with the environment variables. When we installing the Has driver, it's by default setting the default location where the license.files and what's the name of that file. So if you are sure that you connected the USB dongle, if you are sure that you copy the correct license.file, and that file is containing the license for the version which you have, and still you are getting the errors, that's the something which you need to check. Yes, if maybe somebody by mistake or by installing Morpho, that's the only product which have different path to the license, override those information. And right now you did everything as it should be, but simply system is looking for your file in the totally different place or the file with a different name. And that is working for the both USB dongles and node-lock license. For the floating license, the path each time could be changed. Yes, because we have something like install the license, and wherever we are installing the file, we are just browsing around the hard drive, and the license monitor would remember that location. The second thing is the floating license is saved in the .xml file, not in the .dat. So those are the two different files for them. If you will open, as it mentioned, that slide, is if you will open the CORAD common files location, and you will notice that you have just license.dat file, it means that you don't have floating license on that machine. Yes. For the floating, it's always .xml file. It could have different name. It could be customized, but still .xml is where the floating licenses are saved. Any question about the licensing? I don't see any question. And you need to remember that it's quite important to predict the proper amount of the USB dongles, because if they will be defined wrongly on the SOW level, then if the customer will decide that he would like to separate machines. And let me just go back to some of the workflow. Like here, in the workflow, it was the design that 3D Plane, 3D Designer, or 4D Designer will be on the single station. But the end customer, during the installation, is deciding that no, he wants to keep separate them. And in that case, you will need additional USB dongle, which will be extra paid. Or you will need get some extra approval from the sales. Of course, the nice solution in that case, of course, if customer will agree the node-lock license, it sometimes can save us, but not always customer want to agree for it, because always they are scary that if there will be any problem with the hardware machine, or they would like to make some backup, they don't have the license for it. So that's the one thing. The second thing is what we should remember about the license for the 3D Player Maestro. Sometimes until the training, customers are not aware that during the broadcasting from 3D Player Maestro, they cannot or they shouldn't do any creation of the new templates. Okay, so in that case, they are then surprised that when they making the broadcasting from the 3D play, they cannot at the same time create a new production or change the same production for the next show. So in that case, they are also supposed to think about additional license in case of 3D play, or maybe 3D play browser, as I mentioned before, which can create the events. And in the second scenario with the Maestro, Maestro is combined from the two small tools, Maestro controller, the playout, and the page editor. The page editor is what is where we creating the pages. Yes, the Maestro playout is where we adding the pages to the rundowns and play them from there. So in that case, when you ordering Maestro, you're paying once, but really you are getting license for the two products, Maestro and Page Editor. And that's the point when you're ordering or when you start the installation, when to decide if they are okay to have it on the single PC or they would like to divide them between two separate machines. Then of course we are coming back to the same question, what about the license? Or additional USB dongle, or not lock the dongles, or third scenario in that case, maybe Page Editor should be on the same machine as the 4Designer. In that case, we have the same number of the dongles, just different license assigned to them.